I'm Jake Bruton, and today on the Build Show, we're at Emmett Russell's shop, Russelbilt, here in Columbia, Missouri, and we're not going to talk about building. We're not going to talk about residential construction. We're going to talk about art, and we're going to talk about municipal art, which seems like a total, like, this is not what the Build Show does, and I agree, but I think this is too cool to not make a video and show people about it, so thank you, buddy, for having me.
Thank you for coming.
So we'll lace in a bunch of shots after this stuff gets installed because it's leaving the shop today or tomorrow.
Yep.
What is behind us is part of a, what, 200-foot long sign?
Sir. Yep.
Okay, so we live in Columbia, Missouri. The municipality, the downtown, the district contracted with Emmett and a contractor to install this enormous, like, welcome to downtown, we are Columbia sign. And so it involves... Let's talk about everything except for the giant orb behind us first. So I'm standing in front of the letter L.
Yep, that's 5 foot tall.
In the word Columbia, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell me about how these guys came to fruition first.
So we had the fronts and the backs water jet all out of 3/16 stainless steel, and then all the sides sheared, welded all together with a TIG welder, and then ground and polished everything to what you see right here.
Okay, so it's stainless steel, it's cut to shapes, and you're basically just welding boxes together, right?
Correct.
Even when the box is a C shape or an L shape or an M, it's just a box.
Yep.
And then everything gets hand polished on the outside, so this grain is unique to this panel. We're not using pre-polished because you couldn't weld the corners together and make everything look right.
It was for best use of the sheets. The sheets, if they are polished, they come in a certain direction.
Yep.
And so we decided to not have anything polished so that we had control and not having to repolish things and go the other direction.
Yeah, so artistically speaking, if the polish goes this direction on this panel, you don't want it to run horizontal on the next panel because it looks funky. It should all be uniform, and that's kind of like, this isn't in the plans, this isn't in the renderings, this is in Emmett's head going, yeah, that's going to look silly, we have to find a way to do that different, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, so we have all of our letters, everything in the word Columbia, except for the letter O.
Correct.
Which this is, how big is this orb?
This is 8 foot.
Okay, so we have an 8-foot sphere out of stainless. So let's just talk about construction of the sphere.
Sure.
How did this thing, how does this come to exist in the first place?
Yes, so we called a company out of Boston I ordered 3 hemispheres from them. 2 of the hemispheres I put together and welded together to create the ball, and then the 3rd hemisphere was for cutting out these letters that we added the positive art, and we actually cut those on our fast cut CNC.
Okay, so you get hemispheres because the ball is probably too big to ship, and so he gets 3 hemispheres delivered to the shop. You use your gantry crane to move them on top of each other.
Correct.
And then we have a ball, and then that ball gets polished, and you can see some of the polish it's all just like this. It's making decisions artistically to give this thing a pattern.
Yep. So my goal with this was the star of the show. And so I decided to do a crosshatch pattern to make this one really stand out. And then, as you can see, I did a directional pattern on the positive letters, and I decided to do that same pattern on the other ones, on the big letters, so that everything kind of tied in.
Yeah. So then all of these, let's start with the applied items here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a round surface. You have a CNC, you have a fast cut CNC in your shop. They can lay a sheet of metal on there and just cut it.
Yes.
That would be like this, right? Like it would rock back and forth.
And that was what the extra hemisphere was for. And so our fast cut CNC has a ohmic sensor in it that detects and tells you, it's getting close to the surface. And so it actually can follow the curve. It doesn't turn, it's always perfectly vertical.
But it would make a trip like that.
Yeah. And so my stepson did all the artwork and nested everything to be cut out of about a 17 by 17 domed piece. And so he nested everything in there and cut them all out with the fast cut. And then that way the curve, it fits right on here. I don't have to hammer it or do anything like that.
Okay, so Emmett said stepson, he means Sam. Sam is part of the team here. Sam is responsible for a bunch of the artwork that is in the small scale,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Like there's this, your shop is, we have technology and we have hammers and nails and we have a welder and we have, you know, we can hand grind things. And that's a comment about, like, just like everything that's on this, all the artwork where it talks about everything that our community is about, Emmett has this little community where, you know, we have somebody water jetting out stainless panels for these letters. We have somebody providing hemispheres. We have Sam helping with the letters. We have other shop help cutting and grinding, and I think that's important because you don't want it to be like, oh, I did this
Yeah, I
by
absolutely
myself.
didn't do it. I feel like I was really just the assembly guy in this process, but I did bring together a bunch of people to do this, and that was the goal. And it was almost all of it done locally.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the tie-in to Build Show. It's having the right team in place to get the right result.
Right.
So
something on this artwork here I'd like to point out is that this artwork all had to be what we call distorted or warped. And so we were provided all the artwork. The city picked all that artwork out, gave us an artwork file, but it was all flat.
Yep.
So in order, as the ball, you know, as you get further up on the point of the ball, if you want everything to follow what we were calling the equator of the project, we had to take measurements of how much that warp would be, warp it in the program, in the computer program that was sent with our fast cut, and then we sent those to our guy who laser cut sandblasting templates for us.
Yep. So we're applied stainless cut out of that third hemisphere. We can go here next. That's what he just referenced. So it's smooth. It might look like something on camera, but all this is sandblasted where they didn't sandblast around the letter. So you had laser cut templates, you mask everything off, and then you have, is it Show Me Mobile Blasting?
Show Me Mobile Blasting.
He's based in Columbia here too. He's part of that team. Comes out, you guys did test pieces and took them to the body in charge of this project and said, hey, are you okay with this blasting? Can we get an approval? Everything.
Absolutely, yes.
The same way we would do tile samples and grout and go, do you like this grout? This
just
is
like a client.
You know, we're working with the client. We're devising a method to, you know, the artwork varies. Sorry, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
We're applying, we're removing, we're altering, all to make a very textured piece of art. I think this part is some of my favorite, even though this is kind of the part that probably took the least amount of effort. Like, you cut a hole and you have to grind all of this. You cut these and you have to weld them on. He showed up and just went, I mean, I know it's not that simple, but.
So like all these pieces here and this here you have your hands in, those were all freehand cut. I curved a piece of like a straight edge, made it on a slight curve so it followed the curve of the globe. And then as many times as I could, I would use that straight edge, but the other times was freehand.
Which I think is perfectly fine. There's an artist's touch to it. You know, we talk about that feeling of the artist actually being involved, leaving the welds, having a little bit of a texture to your cut, those sorts of things. I think it's perfectly fine. So we also have one more panel here.
Yeah.
They're in a few places. Talk to me about these panels that are a whole panel that's adhered.
So they had 3 photos that they wanted to have on it, and we actually didn't know until the very last minute whether or not we could do it. And so we had a local guy who has a laser machine, Dan Hahn, custom laser engraving, and he did some metal marking on that for us. Because of the curved surface, we were running into issues with engraving and the powerful machines, and so we went to a metal marking and then clear coated the photos.
Okay, so it really is kind of just almost like a
burnt in paint,
yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. So we have, I guess, 4. I had thought about it as 3 things, but we have 4 with the laser engraving.
Yeah, which really adds a lot of artistic value, and again, it makes this thing the real star of the show. We do have some etch work from Show Me Mobile Blasting on every letter that tells a story about Columbia. Each one is different. And the whole goal was to have, is this going to be over 200 foot? It's spread out, and it's spread out so people can walk around. So people can walk around and have a conversation about it. And I've had many people in my shop along this process, and it does just that. They spent almost too much time here.
I've come by multiple times to come and see it. So it is a municipal project. It was constructed by a team. You had the right team in place, and it really, I do think, will show you what it looks like installed. I think that there is an experience to walk the whole thing, not to just look at it when you're driving by, because this thing has a lot more to it than what you would expect just from the street. Okay, so the delivery process, this thing's going to get picked up and put on a trailer?
Yes, so Aaron Steel, the local steel shop, the same company that water jet everything and sheared all the pieces to my measurements, they're going to show up tomorrow or today, and we are going to use the boom truck and pick everything and set it on the trailers. We're going to wrap everything up today, and then tomorrow morning, first thing, we're going to drive down on site and start unloading. We have all the bolts epoxied, all the anchors epoxied into the concrete piers, and we use templates for all that stuff, so we're about 99% sure that everything's going to line up, but you know how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and so then there's lighting to show this thing at night. I think that'll be really cool. I mean, you can see just now the sun shining off of it has a crazy cool effect.
From what they told me, they're putting in color changing LED lights. And so I put a light at the very top and at the very bottom, but at the North Pole and the South Pole, because this thing does sit at a tilt.
Which is kind of funny to think, like, it's a sphere. That's the same,
right?
You know, that's the same as that. It's just what the artwork does, which is
originally it was straight in the drawing, and so this project's been going on for about 2 years. About a year and a half ago, they hired me to come in as a consultant, so that they could bring it from
as an artist and a fabricator.
As an artist and a fabricator, so that whatever design they wanted could actually be fabricated. And then I actually had to competitively bid on it, so I had to be the lowest bidder, and I ended up getting that. But they originally had this thing straight, and they kept talking about it as a globe, and I was looking at it, and I said, I think it should tilt just like the Earth does. And they went with it. So this is how it ended up.
Okay, I think Emmett's in a very lucky position that he gets to participate in something like this and have them take his opinion as something that they should respect, because I don't think that there's very many clients out there that totally just go, "Oh, you're the artist. We'll let you do what you want."
Not really bother me any.
And so I think that's a compliment to your skills, but I also think the people involved in this project, that's a compliment to them to go, okay, he's the expert. We should listen to the expert. So, okay, if you're in Columbia, make sure you drive by this thing. It's at Broadway in Providence by the time this thing publishes.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing work. Thanks for indulging this doesn't have anything to do with building. Thanks for being on Build Show.
Thank you.